Good evening, dear participants. Am I audible? Am I audible? Yes.
Yes,
Thank you
sir.
so much. Yeah. So, thank you so much, dear participants, for coming for the sixth day, this international research methodology workshop on uh, bridging paradigms on mixed method approach. I hope you have enjoyed yesterday's class also. Even I also learned many things from Saram faculty, and she has given some in-depth knowledge also about from the scratch till to the superior level. And today we have one more resource person, Dr. Prasad sir, and he will be giving you the great in-depth knowledge because we are started our syllabus from beginner level, then intermediate level, then senior level, and now we are completed the beginner level, and now we are going to the inter level, and we will be ending with the senior level. So this is the way we have uh, prepared the syllabus in such a way that we are starting from the scratch to the top layer. Okay. And yes, today also we this a duty and sole responsibility as well as my privilege to welcome the resource person for the day, Dr. Prasant Silvera sir, and former faculty from Amrita Vishnu Vidyapitham, Tamil Nadu, and he has completed his PhD, and currently he is a what was that independent. He is doing some research activities, and he has done publications, and he has worked on mixed method approach. He has worked a lot with mixed method approach, and today he will be taking the class on data collection strategies in mixed method research. What other strategies are there, and how we can do the data collection? Because everybody knows that data collection is not a simple task. Collecting data is not a simple task, it's a big task. So there are various strategies involved there while collecting the data. So today, sir will be taking the class on data collection strategies, right? And without much delay, let me hand over the session to the concerned faculty. Dear participants, as like the previous meetings, the voice as well as there was completely locked. The meeting was locked by the admin, so they to avoid an avoidable it was disturbance because no, if some by mistakenly we might unmute the full microphone so that other participants will get disturbed. So taking into consideration, our concern is not lock the meeting, but this is the only way that we can respect the faculty, and this is the only way we can avoid unwanted disturbance from knowingly as well as unknowingly. But anyway, we will be open the meeting, we will unmute all the participants from 7:45 to 8 o'clock. That time, you can ask your questions, you can give your suggestions, as well as your appreciations to the resource person. And more or less, today we are crossing nearly about 5 days we have completed successfully, and remaining 9 days left. This is the first time we are organizing one credit course. The certificate is equal to one credit course since it has 30 hours, and we will be having upcoming days in a beautiful way. Anyway, requesting all the participants to give your cooperation in this regard. Meanwhile, if you are having any kind of doubts, if you want to know the details of the concerned resource person, do let us know. We will send their details, their mail IDs, their contact as well. This is also for your kind information. And today also we are having a YouTube live. May those once the meeting is done, we will be sharing you the YouTube live in the concerned group also. Once the concerned resource person is sharing the PPTs, that also will be shared to you in the WhatsApp group. Okay. And those who are not able to ask your doubts, sir, I'm not that much familiar in English or Hindi or Tamil, whatever it may be, koi baat nahi. We are there to assist you, and you can type in the chat box. If you're typing in Hindi, also fine for us. We will, what was that? We will translate to the concerned resource person. He'll be able to give you the answer accordingly. So far, all the resource person is beautifully, they are having good knowledge. And not only good knowledge, they have enough knowledge in answering all your questions in such a way that we are also able to know more details about the content research. So now, without any delay, let me invite resource person for the day, Dr. Prasad Silvera, sir. to take over the session. And this event was organized by Standard College Manipur, Kachinkonam College Manipur, Impal College Manipur in collaboration with RC25 Sociology of Sports under the tutelage of Professor Dr. Sanjay Tiwari sir, and IIDM Integrated Institute of Disaster Management under the control of Dr. Vasudevan, and CMS College of Science and Commerce, and followed by Vidya, followed by Women's University, and followed by we have uh, Dr. Ambedkar's KLE Society, Dr. Ambedkar's College. So these are the collaborating institutions to collaborate for this event. Without much delay, let me invite our resource person for the day to take over the session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Bennett, sir. Am I audible? Am I audible, sir? Okay. So let me ensure the technical facilities before move on to my presentation. So I'll share my screen, the PPT. So is the screen visible?
Yes, sir. It's visible, sir. It is visible. It is visible, sir.
So am I audible enough?
Yes, sir. You're completely audible and the screen also
Okay.
visible.
So
You
the
can move
screen
ahead,
is in
sir.
the presentation mode or in the presenter mode, sir? The slideshow or a presenter mode?
No, it is a presenter mode only. It's fine.
Okay,
It's
should I?
fine.
So presenter mode is not fine for me. 1 second. Still is in the presenter view, sir.
Yes, sir.
So
Now
can
it's
you see
visible,
only
sir.
the? Yeah, you can see only the slide, or you can see my next slide also.
Only one slide we are able to see, sir.
Okay, okay, sir. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Welcome, sir.
So I was able to see more than 150 participants right now in this session. So before I begin and begin with my presentation, I would like to thank each and every participant who has come forward at this late evening after a tiring day. So I hope everybody would have had a tiring day today. So it is not easy for each and every person having all the daily routines and commitments to come forward and sit in a session for 2 hours and learn something new for their career, for their learning, whatever it is. This, for that reason, I totally appreciate each and everyone here. And so I don't want to go with the cliche way of taking up a presentation or session. So I will let you know what are the other things that we are going to discuss and learn from the session from the further slides. So before moving on to that, I know this has been there had been like 4 or 5 sessions that has gone prior to my session that is going to happen now. So with that idea and understanding, I like to ask a question. Um, So can I pose a question to the audience, general audience? Anybody can answer, but I really wanted someone to answer. Like we cannot have this one way of going on with the session from my side alone because that would be boring, really boring for me, right? So it is the secondary thing is from your side. No, I'm not bothered about it, but I'm more bothered about from my end. I would feel really bored and uncomfortable if I keep speaking for next 1.5 hours just like that to a system, to a computer, right? So for that reason, I would like to initiate the entire session with a common research question or an idea. So this doesn't directly take us into the topics that we are going to discuss, but rather it is going to connect us in a different way that we are going to discuss further. So, can somebody tell me what is the urging problem in our country right now? Someone? Any problem? Can somebody tell me some problem that we have in our country. There are so many problems. Do you agree with me? There are so many problems in our country. Can somebody tell me one problem at least?
ꯃꯈꯥꯗꯤ ꯃꯤꯠ ꯈꯔ ꯅꯠꯇ꯭ꯔꯣ?
Sorry.
Protein, energy,
Bala, ma'am.
malnutrition.
Sorry, come again.
Protein, energy, malnutrition.
Oh, malnutrition. Yes, good. Anything else?
Sir, we in NEP policy, National Education Policy 2020, we talk about inclusive education, but still we are we have not achieved the 100% inclusivity.
Okay.
The people differently able and the other people, other gender people, they face lots of difficulties.
Okay. So as I just asked for a problem, but Sonu Pandey, right? Miss Sonu Pandey has given a entire research finding. The problem is, in general, we can consider that problem as an education in our country. And she has also given us the data that so and so problem is happening because of so and so reasons. And I don't know how would that conclusion come from? From where did that conclusion come from? So yes, with that, I would like to ask the next question. Why do we do research? Why do we do research?
So we do research to find a solution of a problem.
Solution for a problem. Okay. Anyone else? Thank you, Sonu. Thank you so much. Anyone else? Why do we do research?
It's about fact-finding investigation, sir.
Fact-finding investigation. True. Then why do we want to find facts, sir? That is the question.
Fact which deals with problems as well as prospects, sir.
Yes. So every facts that we are trying to find leads us to a problem that is concurrently happening or happened in our society or going to happen in our society. So if there is only a problem, then we can do a research about it. So that becomes a research problem. And that research problem will lead us to a question called research question, right? So with that research question, that will take a researcher into a point called framing a hypothesis, right? So for any research, we need a problem to work upon, be it a science-based research or a social science research or a psychology research or education research, whatever research, we need some problem to work upon. If we don't have a problem, then we don't need research at all. Agreed? Yes. Some question from Dr. Jagdev. Okay. So, yeah, with that, why do we do a research? To understand a problem, to address a problem. Again, is a research really necessary? The question comes, is a research really necessary to address a problem? Anybody can answer? Does research really necessary to address a problem? Okay. Someone? I don't want to take up much time. So yes, research is compulsory needed to address any sort of problem happening in a country or in a society. Okay. So if the intent, there is a problem, and to address the problem, we have a research question. Yes, we come up with a research question. And we need to also understand the intent behind choosing a research problem. Anybody can have, see, somebody spoke about malnutrition. There's another person who spoke about education. And I work in the area of environmental conservation, right? So each and every individual have a connection to a problem. They might have established this connection through various means. That is unnecessary. But the individual or the researcher who is working on with the problem has to have some sort of bond with that problem to come up with a proper understanding and establish a connection and come up with a research question to address it. So basically, there should be a purpose or intent in choosing a research problem is the point that I'm going to try to tell you all. Get it? So anybody can have different purpose. There are different purposes to take up a research study, to take up a research problem. like assistant professors like us, we have various reasons or intent. Something like we need to increase our APS scores, we need to have like monetary benefits, and most importantly, yes, we need to publish. Agreed? So for these reasons, look at the intent behind choosing a research problem. I don't want to do a research just because I need to get some sort of monetary benefit out of it. I don't want to do a research study just to increase my points, just to get it published. But if the intent is pure, if I want to do research with all these means, at the same time, if the intent is in a larger way that I want to address this problem so that there will be a better society coming up, I'm going to serve the society in a better way through my research. So there's two ways. If I'm working on this problem for myself to get it published, to get good monetary benefit out of it, that becomes only me. So that becomes a qualitative research. We can consider this as a qualitative research. I'm just trying to tell you in a simple way to understand about research. If the same research, if I do for the betterment of the society, so that from the research, I identify some sort of solution to that problem of malnutrition that has been spoken now, and the entire society, the community of India is addressed from the solution that I have researched about. So my research is being generalized to the entire population of India to address malnutrition. That becomes a quantitative research, right? When these two things are merged enough, where I also need to get some sort of benefit. The benefit can be monetary or publishing benefit. More than that, most of the researchers do research for the satisfaction that they get, for the happiness they get when they do a research. There are so many researchers like that. So that is also one sort of personal benefit. When the personal benefit is aligned with the larger societal benefit together, that can be considered as a mixed methods research. And for the entire session that we are going to deal with for the next 1 hour or 1.5 hours is about learning for ourselves, at the same time giving to the entire society that we are going to deal with, that we are being with. Clear? So what is mixed methods research? You would have got a vague understanding from my example. At the same time, you would have got a better understanding from the previous sessions that you have attended, right? So for any researcher to take up a mixed method research and come up with a mixed methods study, the researcher should have, okay, S. Anjali Verma, you raised your hand. Yes, Anjali, you want to tell something?
No, sir, it may be mistake, sir. We have given last 2 minutes for the participants to ask for questions, sir.
Okay, sir. I'll go ahead.
Yes, sir.
So for any researcher to take up a mixed methods research, so the researcher should come up with a research question to be addressed. The research question should have a research problem. Take an example of a urging problem in our country right now. I would choose air pollution, if I'm not wrong. Air pollution, particularly in the northern part of the country, in the Delhi, the city of Delhi, metropolitan city of Delhi. Okay, so the problem here is, so that I'm choosing this problem so that everybody can connect to this, right? So I'm coming up with a research problem to address this air pollution problem in Delhi. Okay, so that research problem will become my research question. That research question will lead into the hypothesis that I'm going to frame. Okay, since I'm going to take up a mixed methods research, I want to frame my research question and the hypothesis where I'm trying to I'm trying to assess the air pollution levels. So the quantitative side, the quantitative approach I can take up to understand the air quality level of different parts of Delhi. Okay. So to what extent people are affected? These two questions can be addressed or understood through the quantitative approach that I take up. When it comes to a qualitative side, I go to the parts of Delhi, I talk to people, and I try to understand their lived experiences in that particular area because of air pollution, the air quality they are going to. Right? The lived experiences are the perceptions of people in Delhi about the air pollution. Okay, this becomes the qualitative research. So in case of mixed methods research that we are dealing with, I need to combine this both, where I'm trying to understand as a mixed methods researcher, this air quality level in each part of Delhi. So air quality level, there are something called PM 2.5, carbon monoxide, there are different pollutants, no? So what are the levels of pollutants in each part of different parts of Delhi? And how people living in this different parts, where, for example, in a particular part of Delhi, part A of Delhi, the air pollutant level might be, the bad pollution level might be poor at the level of 90%. So what is the perception or lived experience of people living in that area towards air pollution? When I come to a different part of Delhi, like B, a part B of Delhi, there might be the air quality might be 50%. So the people living in that area, they might have a different perception about air quality, and their lived experience is different. So when I combine these two and do a research of mixed methods study, right? So I have a approach now, mixed methods approach. I have a research question, I have a research problem, research question, I have framed my hypothesis. So I have everything. So can we directly go and collect the data? I have framed my research question, hypothesis ready, pakka. Now I need to go to Delhi, part A, location, I'm going to part A. Then I'm collecting data. Part B, collecting data. Can I do that directly? Is that the right way of doing research? I want answers from the other side. Hope I'm not confusing you all. I want to ensure at least 1 or 2 people are listening among these 150 plus people sitting here. So hope you all understood what is the question. Right? Now I have the research question, hypothesis, everything has been framed pakka. So can I go directly into the field and collect data? Can that be done? So there's chat box. Someone is saying yes. Okay. No. Sure. Quality study, no. Okay. Most of the answers are coming as no. Yes. So we cannot collect data just like that once we have finalized our hypothesis or research question. We can have a good understanding based on the literature that we collected. Before moving on to the field to collect data, we need to work on something very important. That is what we are going to look into this entire session. Without working on this area, this gap between research question hypothesis that we have framed and the data that we are going to collect in the field, there is this gap, right? This gap is that we are going to look into right now. And this gap helps in understanding the data collection process better and doing the data collection process better and collecting quality data. If this process is not addressed in our entire research, the research would go, the rigor of the research will be poor. For that reason only, we need to show attention. We need to keep attention for the entire 1 hour session. I'll keep it 1 hour. If I'm going more than an hour, please let me know. I'll hold on to it. Yes. Okay. Yeah, with the same examples I've been talking about, air quality, that we are going to understand people's perception and the air quality levels, mixed methods research. And right now we need to go collect the data. So what are we going to do now? Before collecting the data, we have come up with an idea that we are going to do a mixed method. We need to collect both the types of data. And in a mixed method study, we need to understand something that is very important, that any research study depends on the research design, or the data collection process depends on the research design that the researcher has chosen. I keep telling my students, the research will teach you what to do. You cannot choose what to do for your research. But the research question will tell you what to choose to address that research question. You cannot have a research question and you cannot plan things that you know yourself. Basically, for any research, the research question will choose its own research design, and the research design will choose its sampling methods, procedures, process of entire data collection. For that reason, we need to be aware about the procedures that is prevailing in the one. So for the mixed methods research study, we might have known from the previous sessions, there are two types, mainly two types of mixed research, mixed methods research. One is concurrent, the other one is sequential, where in the concurrent form of data collection, the researcher will go collect the data parallelly at the same time. For example, in that air quality data that we go to collect, we go to one part of Delhi, collect in the technical side, we monitor the air quality levels, we collect the quantitative data, and at the same time, we talk to people in that area, we do an in-depth interview, we do an observation, and we try to understand people's perception of the air quality. That is the qualitative data. So when we do these two things together at the same moment, that becomes a, sorry. We go try to understand the levels of data collection. Then we assess the levels of pollutants of air quality in part of Delhi. Then with that assessment, we come and do an analysis. What is the level? Where is it extreme? Where is it less? Okay, we will choose only the extreme level part of Delhi. So we go and collect data from there. We will go. So once we have collected the air quality data, that is quantitative data, we do an analysis of it and we come to a conclusion that we are going to choose only a particular part of Delhi because that part is affected more. So on the collector, we do a qualitative study there. So this is a sequential form of data collection where first one approach is done that will lead into the second approach. It can be either way. It can be quantitative first or qualitative first, vice versa, the second one. Okay. So when we do this form of data collection, concurrent form of data collection or a sequential form of data collection, any researcher would face issues or challenges in collecting data, right? These issues should also be addressed to have a quality data. That we will discuss in the upcoming slides. Yeah, I'm still in the first slide. I haven't moved my slides. I'm still in the first slide. So we will have issues also. The researchers, the challenges will also be. We will also look into the challenges and how to address the challenges. Also, we will look into. Okay, and we will also look into some of the basic elements and the takeaways. Some of the tips to address these issues. Finally, it becomes very important for any researcher, for mixed methods research, before doing a mixed methods, before learning about mixed methods research, we need to equip ourselves in understanding the fundamentals of both quantitative and qualitative research individually. If we become good at quantitative and qualitative research individually, if we can understand better, that will eventually lead us to understand mixed methods research in a better way, because mixed methods research doesn't involve anything new apart from what we have done, what we have learned in the fundamentals of quantitative and qualitative research. Okay, so with that, I move on to the next slide. For the same reason, in the upcoming entire session, what we are going to learn is two things, just two things. Don't want to break your head. The first thing that we are going to learn is the procedures and the systematic procedures that are involved in the quantitative and qualitative data collection process. Once we ace in this individual quantitative and qualitative data collection process, that will eventually take us to the next level to understand the procedures of mixed methods research design, our data collection better. And finally, we also look into the tips and the takeaways, do's and don'ts of the entire process. Okay, I'll move on to the next slide. Yes. So, as I have spoken, the specific type of procedures for understanding the quantitative and qualitative research, but they do have a systematic way of doing it. They do have stages. Okay, the entire process of data collection in quantitative and qualitative research have stages. Okay, so we will try to understand the quantitative and qualitative research process through the stages that they have been involved in. Okay, so 5 main stages or phases are in quantitative and qualitative research data collection process. So once we ace this, we actually fulfill the entire gap between research question hypothesis and the data collection process, the moving into the field to collect data. Okay, so these are the things that we need to ensure that we have done already before getting into the field to collect data. Okay, so the first step is sampling procedure. What are the sampling procedures involved? What can be the sampling procedure? Yes. So could you please mute? Could you please mute yourself? Dr. Padmavati, could you please mute yourself?
Sir, wait a minute, let me mute everybody.
Yes, sir. So
Yes, sir. Now you can unmute yourself, sir.
yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, fine.
So the first step or first stage in a quantitative or qualitative data collection process is procedures involved in sampling process. How are you going to sample? Who are they? How are you going to collect data? Who are the people that you are going to collect data from? Samples, right? The second thing is permissions needed to collect data. There is some sort of disturbance again. Okay, the third stage of data collection processes. What are the types of data that we are going to collect? The data types. We will look into each and every step in a detailed manner in the upcoming slides. And how are we going to record the data that we have collected in the field? Okay, and finally, how we are the actions involved in administering the data collections. Okay, these are 5 stages that we see in detail. So if you understand these 5 stages, you become a better mixed methods researcher, not just mixed methods, but a quantitative and qualitative researcher as well. Yes, I move on to the next slide. Yes. The first and foremost stage of data collection procedure in any research approach is sampling procedure. So what does a sampling procedure consist of? As I said, a sampling procedure is helping a researcher to understand from whom the researcher is going to collect the data from. That's the first thing. In the example that we had been discussing at the beginning, that air quality data. Yeah, so we are trying to collect air quality data, right? The first question comes to my mind is, to anyone's mind is, where are you going to collect the data from? From whom you are going to collect the data? Who are the people involved, right? Who is the target group? The question who helps in understanding the target group, those people who are going to give you the data for your study, information for your study. Okay, that is who. Next comes a question called where. Where are you going to collect the data? Example, Delhi, outskirts of Delhi or some parts of Delhi. So that where can also be considered as location or research site. But research site has several other meaning that we will see in the upcoming slides as well. Okay, and so you have decided from whom you are going to collect the data for the people, target group. Second thing, where, which location, and you are going to specify the number. You cannot say from the entire population of Delhi, I'm going to collect the data. No, that is not feasible. In any research, feasibility of research comes first. If the feasibility is failed, then the research is going to get failure. For the reason, we need to look into the numbers. We need to specify numbers. How are we going to come up with the numbers? Okay, so these three things we need to decide before getting into the next process of data collection. Okay, so we will look into for the sampling procedures, we will look into each approach. For qualitative, we will look first, then quantitative, and for the mixed methods research design, we will look later. Okay, so first we will look into the sampling procedures involved in qualitative data. So as you all must have known, a qualitative study involves trying to understand individual's perspective, right? So how will you understand individual's perspective? By getting to know, by reaching out to the person individually. How will you reach out to the person individually? Some way you need to map. So sampling is something called mapping. Okay, where you try to identify individuals, where are they located, then you go meet them in person. That is called sampling, in simple words. Especially qualitative sampling is something called, in qualitative sampling, we mostly use purposes sampling. That's why it addresses the purpose of the research at its very best. Compared to any other, like compared to quantitative or mixed methods, qualitative approach addresses the purpose of the study. It only looks for the information that is necessary. It doesn't look into ways to generalize the result. I don't want to generalize my result. I want to know what is that particular people in that point of Delhi thinking about air pollution. How are they feeling about air pollution? That is enough for me. Okay, that is why we come up with a qualitative approach to understand the purpose. So how will we understand the purpose? How are we going to map people based on the purpose? By a sampling method called purposes sampling. Okay, so you must have known about purposes sampling. But there are three, within purposes sampling, there are three branches, three types of purposes sampling, I can say. One is maximal variation purposes sampling. So you can see this entire slide, the entire slide addresses about the question who of a sampling procedure, who we are going to collect the data from whom. Okay, so in that we have something called purposes sampling. One of the types of purposes sampling is maximal variation sampling. Yes, so what does the sampling mean? So if a researcher decides in the entire Delhi, I don't want to know from a particular group of people what is happening within them. Rather, I want to understand different perspectives. As I told you, I want to collect data from point A of Delhi and part B of Delhi and the part C of Delhi. Okay, the three places I have. So three different people living at three different sites. I want to understand these three communities' perspective. Okay, so this criteria can be based on gender, where you can even try to understand women's perspective, children's perspective. I want to understand men's perspective, young people's perspective, older people's perspective, right? So when you try to understand, for example, if you choose to do if you choose to collect data from 25 people of Delhi, you choose 5 people older, okay, 5 people transgender, 5 people children, 5 people like scientists, health professionals. So when you come up with when you try to understand different perspectives of different groups of people living in that particular 3 areas, this becomes maximal variation sampling. But what are you trying to understand? The central idea is what is their perspective of air pollution? What is their lived experience of air pollution in Delhi? right? The central idea is air pollution. So when you try to understand and collect data from different people to know different perspectives about one central problem, air pollution, that becomes a maximal variation sampling, purposes sampling. Okay, this is one example. We'll move on to the next sampling, next two sampling methods within purposes sampling. That is extreme case sampling. So extreme case sampling focuses on unusual or exceptional cases. If somebody would have done a quantitative analysis earlier, you would be knowing we would draw a curve, a normality curve, right? So not all people, for example, if you have collected data from 500 people in Delhi, okay, and you draw a curve, mean, median, mode, and all. So I don't want to get into the nuances. I don't want to confuse you all. But when you try to draw a curve, you must have, most of you must have seen the normality curve. Yes, U curve something, right? So when you map all these points, all 500 people's data, you will get a normality curve, mostly. Okay, there would be few cases, few people out of 500, 20 people or 30 people who will fall away from this normality curve. For example, when you give them the questionnaire and collect data, they would have given all answers, yes, 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 yes. That is one extreme case, right? There would be some person who would have ticked all the answer, no, 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 no. There are people who do it genuinely. I'm talking about genuine cases. I know there are students or people who doesn't do it genuinely. They just keep marking answers just like that. I'm not talking about them. But there are genuine people who fill up the questionnaire, who give answers or information genuinely, where all the results will fall in two extremes. Right? So out of 500 people, 25 or 50 people fall into these extremes. Right? So we choose only these 50 people to do an interview. So now 500 people data has been collected. In that 50 people became the exceptionals. We also call them as outliers. In quantitative approach, we call them as outliers. What I do personally as a researcher, I go meet all these 50 people individually and do an interview study. I do an interview method. I collect data through interview. I talk to them for 1 hour. I go with an interview schedule, collect data, right? So when I do this with 50 people, that becomes the extreme case purposive sampling, right? And we have the final purposive sampling type as homogeneous purposive sampling, where we choose only one group. For example, in that outskirts of Delhi, we have part A, part B, part C. I don't want to know different perspectives and all, but rather I want to know in particular area, part B alone, how are the people feeling about it, feeling about air pollution. Choosing one particular area and collecting data from them. Even we can simplify it by saying in that particular women or only youth or only children. So children, what is the perspectives of children living in that particular B part of Delhi? That becomes a homogeneous sampling. Clear? So these are the different within types of purposes sampling techniques we need to follow. Okay, with that, I move on to the next slide. So the next comes where. So now we have addressed the previous slide, we have tried to address from whom we are going to collect the data and how we are going to whom we are going to collect the data. The next question comes where. As we have said, part A, part B, part C, that becomes the research site. So research site cannot be considered just for the physical thing that we have been discussing about. The physical part of Delhi, north part of Delhi, south part of Delhi. We cannot say just that becomes the research site. No. More than that, the social events occurring places, any natural setting where the social events or cultural events occur without anyone's knowledge. A tea shop, if you are trying to understand the perception of public, or you are trying to do a observation method study. Okay, so what you do is you want to just sit and observe people. You go to a mall and sit and observe people. How many people are jumping a step and uh, are climbing the elevator by jumping? Okay, in a day, you go and sit in a place and you just observe them. That is a social event occurring place. That is a particular event that is happening, and you are trying to understand and you are trying to assess how many people are jumping the elevator in a day. That's a natural setting, so that becomes your research site. That's part alone. Similarly, when you can go into a tea shop also, or it can be a pub, it can be a conference even. You just go into a conference happening in Delhi, where you just go and talk to people, try to understand. It becomes your research site, and it can also become a community. A community can also, where so much of communal things are happening, the cultural norms are happening. How can you understand the cultural norms happening in community? By being in the community, by being with the people belonging to the community. So a community, people living in a different space also, that can be considered as a research site. Apart from this, we have, especially in qualitative studies, the data collecting location becomes the research site for an qualitative researcher. It's very important, because when you book an appointment with your participants for a qualitative study to be collected, data to be collected, you need to ask them. Most of us also do it over phone, telephonic interviews. But what if you want to do an in-person interview? What if you want to do a focus group discussion? You need to fix a place that is comfortable for the participants. So that particular place becomes your research site. Okay, so some of the examples we have seen in the slide: hospital ward, a community clinic, a patient's home can become a research site, right? Similarly, a village, a neighborhood, or an organization's workplace, all these can become a research site, right? So I'll move on to the next slide. In our example, the research site is Delhi. Within Delhi, a particular community if you're choosing, we can consider that community, not the community living space, but the community alone as a research site. And we are coming to the third one, the numbers. Okay, we have chosen from whom we are going to collect the data, from where we are going to collect the data, and to what extent, how many people we are going to collect the data from. That is very important. As I said in the previous slides, we cannot keep the data collection infinite. We need to restrict our data collection process. For that reason, we need to fix our sample size. Since we are dealing with a qualitative study, for the sample sizes for any study, any approach depends on the research design that we choose. Okay, for most of the qualitative studies, just for a thematic analysis to be done, we come up with 30 to 50 participants, normal, considered to be ideal. For a narrative study, 1 or 2, or a case study, 1 or 2 participants alone is more than enough. So you're trying to understand the perspective of 2 cases, or 2 case participants coming from Delhi. What is maybe they would have affected with the cancer, lung cancer. So among the entire Delhi, you might find only 5 people. The example I'm saying, 5 people in that particular area. So you go and collect data from that 5 people only. You do a case study. You can even do a narrative study. Among the 5, you can do 1 or 2 participants. And you can also, when it comes to a grounded theory projects and all, the sample size goes more than 50 till 70 also, 50 to 70, 50 or 60. It's completely fine. Here in grounded theory projects, you try to build theories. For that reason, we need minimum of 50. Okay, and otherwise, thematic analysis only are going to do more than 20 to 50 is idle. And mostly qualitative research, it deals with between 10 and 50, not more than that. It depends on the fund and the feasibility, the research budget that you have allocated for the particular study. Okay. So comparatively, for the research that we do in qualitative and qualitative study needs lesser sample sizes because of the in-depth of information that we are trying to collect from the participants. Yes, we move on to the next. So now what we are going to do, if you are collecting the data, air quality data from the same Delhi population, sampling we are trying to do, right? The first thing is sampling. So here we just collect data, not just to understand the perspective, but very importantly, the data becomes the representation of that particular community, so that we are trying to generalize the entire result to the entire population. So we need to be very careful in collecting the data, and we need to be rigorous enough in sampling the entire process of data collection. Yes. So you must have known this. Most of us know about the simple random sampling, stratified random sampling. I don't want to get in detailed with this process, but just to give a vague information in simple words, if in the entire Delhi example that we have been talking about, if you want to try collect data from the entire part A, we have chosen part A, part B, part C of Delhi. If you want to collect data from the part A, if there are, assume there are 5,000 people living in part A, right? 5,000 in part B and 5,000 people living in part C of Delhi. So we cannot go and collect from each and every one. For that reason, we choose to collect only from part A. Yes, and within part A also, we cannot collect data from all the 5,000 participants, right? For that reason, what we do, we choose to collect data only from 500 people, so that 500 people becomes they should be the representative of the entire 5,000 people. So whatever the answer these 500 people are giving us, that becomes the answer of the 5,000 people. Clear? So we are supposed to give, since we are going to generalize this to the entire 5,000 people living in part A of Delhi, we need to give equal chance for all these 5,000 people to participate in the data collection process. Ethically, right? So that is where comes this probability sampling of simple random sampling. Simple random sampling gives equal chances for all the 5,000 people in that particular area to take part in the study. Clear? So by doing this, the researcher leaves out this bias called selection bias. Can simply say, have given equal chance for all the 5,000 people. And how are we going to choose the 500 people from this 5,000 people? There are techniques called using random number tables you can use. There are softwares also that has come, online websites that will tell you how to choose this 500 people from the 500. That will tell you, that will give you the numbers, right? So you are ensuring that all the 5,000, I have given chance to all the 5,000 people. From this 5,000, 500 has come forward. They didn't come forward, they got this chance. That is the best way of sampling that we ever have in research. Okay, that is random, simple random sampling. And when we try to stratify them, for example, among this 5,000, there are 3,000 females available, 3,000 women in that 5,000 community, only 2,000 men. So what will happen if you choose 500? There will not be equal distribution of men and women, right? There might be or may not be. For that reason, you stratify the population 5,000 into 2. I'll choose 3,000 and 2,000 men, 3,000 women. From this 3,000, you will collect 300. You will choose 300 samples, 300 women, and from this 200, you will get equal representation 200. So 300 plus 200. This is called stratified random sampling. Okay, this stratification can be done in any possible way. Something like this can also be done based on the person's gender, race, the education level, employment, or any other characteristics. It's completely up to the researcher or the research question that the researcher is trying to understand. Clear? So I'll move on to the next. There are the other probabilistic sampling, but I don't want to get into detail. Yes. And in quantitative study, we look into the numbers. Very important. And this is the point where most of the even expert researchers fail. Even expert researchers doesn't know what is the exact sample size that we are supposed to choose for a quantitative study. Yes, for that reason, there has been come up with some modern techniques where we have GPAR softwares that helps us in doing power analysis, especially for experimental researchers. They do use GPAR calculators. There are calculators. Okay, so you can see why do we give more emphasis for this sample size in quantitative study? Because we need to generalize. That is the very important point. We need to generalize first. We need to generalize our findings and results. At the same time, we need to reduce the sampling error. That means the difference between the sample's answers and the actual population's answers. Right? So these two things are very important. For that reason only, we give more emphasis in determining sample size in quantitative research. So yes, to draw inferences with some confidence level and to reduce the sampling error. And how do we do this? In modern times, we have our GPAR calculators. So one example is Lipsey 1990. You can look into for an experimental research design. And for a survey research design, we have sampling formulas. There is something called Kretzi-Morgan formula, right? So there are several formulas. So you can look into that and you can use those formulas or GPAR calculators to come up with a fixed sample size for your quantitative research study. Yes. So far we have done only the first stage of data collection process, that is sampling procedures. Now we will move into the next stage, that is called permissions. Yes, when it comes to a research, to do a research, you cannot go to a public place or a private space just like that. As a researcher, I can say, I'm a researcher, I have come to collect data. Nobody is going to allow you to do that. That becomes a public nuisance if you try to do it in a public space. For a private space, you need to obviously acquire permission prior to research, prior to your study, right? So yes, for that reason, we will try to understand, and for the entire data collection process, in the second stage of entire data collection process, what are the things involved in permission needing stage? The first permission that you are supposed to collect is from the individuals in charge of that sites. This mostly, for example, I have told you that we have been talking about the mall. There's a mall in Delhi. From there, you need to understand, you need to collect the data about air quality or from the people who are coming to the mall. The first thing what you are supposed to do is you need to go and talk to the people in charge over there who can give you permission. That in charge person in research is called as a gatekeeper. Okay, hope I'm making sense. He's saying I'm talking alone. Dr. Bennett sir, somebody can assure me that I'm not talking alone. There are people listening to me. Is my connection stable? My God.
Yes,
Bennett
sir, we are listening.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Soumya. Thank you, Safik. Yes. Let me go into the presentation again. Yeah. So the person who is in charge, who is giving you the permission to do a data collection in that particular space, it can be a private firm. Even in government offices, it's not easy. Not very easy at all, especially in hospital setting. It's not easy at all. So that you need to get permission from someone. Someone has to help you to collect data. That person is called as gatekeeper. So you need to get permission from them first. Okay, so those are called individuals in charge of that particular sites. Yes. And very importantly, prior to collecting data, once you have finalized your permission from the gatekeeper, or before finalizing the permission from the gatekeeper, you are supposed to submit your protocol or proposal, research protocol to the campus based. For most of us collect data coming from a student background or education background. So we need to collect permission or gain permission from our IRBs, institutional review boards first. This has become mandatory in the recent years. Earlier, it was not the case, especially in the Indian researchers, especially social science and humanities researchers. We were not doing it, but in recent times, it has become mandatory, and every researcher is doing it in a very possible way to make sure IRB's permission they are collecting it. Yes, I don't want to get in detail about how to get permission from IRBs. It is unique for each institution. And so I'll move on to the next one. Very importantly, you have got the IRB's permission, you have got the gatekeeper's permission, and very importantly, this is where most of the Indian researchers fail. We fail to acknowledge and get consent from the individuals who are ready to provide us the data. Thank you. Yes. So very importantly, from the target group, from the person, be it you are trying to interview with the person or do a survey study, you're going to give the questionnaire and collect data, whatever you're going to do, you need to get a consent from the person first. Right? Sometimes the person may not be in a state or situation to give you the data, to give you a permission, especially in the case of children. For that reason, we can't get permission from their parents to collect data from their children. Anyone below 18 has to, if you want to collect data from anyone below 18, you need to get permission from their parents. And that is called assent. Yes, we have, so by any research, we have consent form, and any research that deals with children will have an assent form also. We need to have a consent form as well as assent form. Yes. And who was the next person to collect? Sorry. Yes. So these three people are the very important stakeholders when you come to the point of when you are in the stage of getting permission. Yes. So we'll move on to the next stage. So 2 stages of data collection process is done. We'll move on to the next phase, that is data type. What sort of data that we are going to collect, or what sources of data will best answer the research question that we have taken up. Okay, so first we will see the data types involved in qualitative research, then we'll move on to the quantitative research. So the data types, in the sense, the sources. How are we going to collect the data for qualitative research? One is through open-ended interviews. You must be knowing about what is open-ended questions and closed-ended questions. Yes, I don't want to get into detail. If you have any questions, we can have this in the question answer hour, right? So that is open-ended interviews we do, and we also do observations, and we collect data. And as a qualitative researcher, we also look into secondary data, something like public and private documents that is available online, right? And we also use in recent times the use of, especially the mass communication, other in social and the humanities field, there has been increased use of collecting data through the videos, photos, and even sounds and voice notes. All these can be used, all these are used to collect data, especially for the qualitative research. And recently, very recently, they have even used emails and social media posts. This social media post can be considered into the approach of qualitative study, where we call that as, if I'm not wrong, we call that as content analysis. Yes, like we have narrative analysis, thematic analysis, we also have content analysis. We take up social media posts and we do a content analysis of that social media post. For example, you take a social media post that has been posted by eminent people living in Delhi, like politicians living in Delhi. What is their perspective, they would have posted in X, Twitter, right? So you take up all those social media posts from so and so date, from Jan 2025 till July 2026, or just choose Diwali, prior to Diwali and after Diwali, that 1 month time you choose, and you collect all the social media posts by eminent people or just by the Prime Minister Modi, right? And you do a content analysis of all his posts related to air pollution. That becomes a content analysis within qualitative research. Okay, so yes, we will move on to the next source of data type, data collection in quantitative research. Yes, so how do we collect data in quantitative research? In qualitative research, we got to know through interviews, observation, documents, everything we have seen. Especially when it comes to quantitative research, how I'm going to collect the data? First and foremost, as we all know, using standardized instruments or standardized scales. Example, we have so many scales: stress scale, perceived stress scale, aptitude scale, attitude, knowledge, attitude, and perception scale, right? So there are validated instruments and credible instruments that are available open source in other forms also, where we can use them to collect data, quantitative data. Yes. Well, other ways we can use structured interviews and observations. Even within quantitative studies, there are studies that have used, there are researchers who have used structured interviews. Most of the interviews will have, even in your demographic questions, you can have yes or no question. For the example that we have been talking about in air pollution in Delhi, you can ask one question, a close-ended question, something like, to what extent you feel air quality is bad in Delhi, in your place? Very poor, poor, bad, good, very good. 5 options. This can become a close-ended question. You can also ask another question in a simple way. Do you believe or do you perceive air quality is poor in your particular area? Yes or no? Close-ended question. Right? So in this way, we can even collect quantitative quantitative data in quantitative research. Okay, and move on to the next one. Yes. Now, apart from this, we also commonly use census records. In student related research, we use attendance logs and progress reports. All these provide us factual information, but very importantly, all these information are numeric. They are either numeric or we convert them into numeric. But in qualitative approach, we never convert the information to numeric or values. That is very, very important differentiation that we need to understand between a quantitative study and a qualitative study. Hope I'm clear. And move on to the next slide. Next stage. So far we have seen sampling procedure, stage 1. Then we have seen stage 2 is permissions. Stage 3, the type of data, the source that we have used to collect data. And 4th, what are the type of ways that we record the data that we collect, right? Yes. So now they are going to give us the data. Where will we write the data? How will you take the data? You cannot go and sit and listen. Yes, you tell me. Okay, you cannot record everything. How are you going to record the data? Especially in qualitative studies, we need to have something called interview protocol or an interview guideline. Handy, we need to have it in hand to collect the data. When we collect data, when we do an interview with any participant, we need to have this interview protocol with us, which will have a list of questions that we are asking the participant. Also, it will also have space for mentioning the time, at what time we have collected the data, what date we have collected the data, and what location we have collected the data. All this information has to be mentioned in our interview protocol. For that, there should be enough space. Clear? We move on to the next one. There's something called observation protocol. So observation protocol is something very important for any observation-based research within qualitative study. It's a document that helps us to note down observed events. Even when we do an interview with the participant, we will take up observation that is called as notes. We need to take running notes also, right? Apart from the data they give, what is their body language? How much they stumble? Are they getting excited in giving the information? Are they become nervous? Are they becoming low when we ask this particular question? So all these things we take up as notes separately. That is called observation protocol or document. Okay, that is called reflective notes. And these reflective notes will also become as emerging themes. You will also embed or integrate this information into the information or data that you have collected in your interview. That must be done. And finally, we have a form called form for recording. These forms help in reviewing the documents and recording visual data. Okay, this can be photographs. When you do an interview, you can take a photograph. That becomes a record of your visual data, right? Yes. These are things about qualitative data recording, and we'll move into quantitative. In quantitative, what are the things available in the data recording process? Obviously, we need to have an instrument or a scale, a tool, right? It has to be validated, has to be reliable, and it has to be content or culture specific. We cannot take up a tool from a Western context and use it immediately just like that in the Indian context. We need to validate it, and we need to check for reliability with something called content validity, construct validity. I don't want to get into the nuances, but need to have an idea. All these things are there. Maybe if we have another session, we will discuss about in detail. Okay. So I'm just giving a glimpse. What are the things available? Okay. And using adequate skills. This is where most of our researchers, even qualified researchers, are also getting failed in using adequate scales to report the collected data. What does that mean? Adequate scales in the sense using the right Likert scale for your study. So from you might have a tool that has been developed. For example, you're trying to understand the satisfaction air pollution satisfaction level among Delhi residents. That is a scale that you have developed. Okay, that might have 10 questions. Okay, air pollution satisfaction level. Okay, so that answering the 10 questions will give the researcher an idea what is the level of satisfaction of that particular Delhi resident regarding the air pollution. Okay, so you have the questions, you need to give some options, no? The Likert scale. The Likert scale will have, that's something called 3 point, 5 point, 7 point, 9 point, goes 16, 32 and all. What sort of Likert scale that we are going to use for this particular question that you have asked matters the most. So we need to work on to that as well as a researcher in identifying and using adequate or proper Likert scale for the scale or the instrument that you have chosen. Okay, is it going to be a 5 point Likert scale from strongly satisfied? How much, for example, that's a question within that air quality satisfaction scale. To what extent you are satisfied? To what extent you are satisfied in living in this community? The Likert scale can be a 5 point Likert scale from strongly dissatisfied to strongly satisfied. I'm very much satisfied. I'm strongly satisfied. I'm okay, satisfied. I'm neutral. I'm dissatisfied. I'm strongly dissatisfied. For that question, they can answer this way also. At the same time, they can also answer yes or no. Are you satisfied in living with this community? Yes, no. So what do you think? Which option is going to give you a better data, better quality data? The 5 point Likert scale in this question will give you a better data than the 2 point Likert scale. Right? Similarly, for example, I can also say you're trying to understand the temperature of that particular Delhi place. Okay, we can give an option called hot, warm, cold. 3 options. Okay. At the same time, you can also give an option called dash Fahrenheit or degree Celsius, where the participant can also fill up the whether is warm, hot or cold. Anything, any one answer they can fill. At the same time, they can also fill the exact Fahrenheit. What is the Celsius or Fahrenheit in that particular area at that particular time when you're collecting the data? What do you think is the quality data that you have collected? The reporting in Celsius or Fahrenheit becomes the quality data. So as a researcher, we need to work on using adequate and proper Likert scales for the data, for the tool that we are using, be it any scale, attitude scale, personality scale, or whatever. That becomes very important. So I'm not taking much time. We have less time. I'm moving to the next slide. Yes, and coming to the last stage of data collection process, in qualitative study, the focus is mostly goes on reviewing the anticipating issues likely to arise in the field. Okay, so when I'm going to collect data in the Delhi different spots of Delhi, I need to be from the literature or with my personal experience with my pilot study that I have done. I need to anticipate what sort of challenges that I can be facing in the field. I need to be prepared for it. For a qualitative researcher, first qualitative study, then we'll look into the quantitative. Right? So example, the time required to recruit participants. Across Delhi, how many participants I have chosen? I'm going to choose 50 participants. So everything is done. So far, the 4 stages is done. Final stage, they have come. In this stage, how much time that I'm going to take to recruit these participants? Okay. What sort of role as a researcher I'm going to play? I'm going to play an interviewer role or just an observer role or what? Even within observer, we have something called intrinsic and extrinsic observer, within and right participant observation, non-participant observation role. Right, we need to choose that what we are going to do. And very importantly, technical side, we fail to look up where at the last moment the functionality of the recording devices might also fail. And what are the relevant documents that we need to have, like interview protocol, observation protocol, review protocol, all these things are set or not. And very importantly, in recent times, we are also trying to videotape their interview that a participant is giving and trying to ensure appropriate position of this videotaping equipment also becomes necessary. And more than anything, I personally believe entering any of these research sites and collecting participants' data by doing an interview or observation, we are not supposed to evade their privacy. We need to respect their workflow. We need to respect their environment or ambience. As a social work researcher, I always keep telling my students that we are supposed to enter into the participants' world to collect better data. If we fail to do it, then we are not respecting their data, we are not respecting their work, or we are not respecting them. For that reason, we need to understand their participants' world first before getting into that spot to collect the data. Yes, I'll move on to the next. How are we going to administer the data collection within quantitative and qualitative together, right? By offering reciprocity to participants. That means when we collect, this first 3 things are very common for both the approaches. Where once we collect the data, we are supposed to give them compensation. Some sort of compensation we pakka need to give them. Monetary benefit or any sort of other benefits we need to give the participants. Okay, and we need to ensure the data is safe and confidential, and anonymity will have to be maintained. That is, this comes under ethical, but very important. And we are supposed to disclose the purpose of the research also to all the participants who are taking part in a quantitative study or qualitative study. We need to tell them very clearly why are we doing this research with them. Why are we making them to be a part of this research? Clear? Okay. And only for quantitative approach, all these ethical principles that we have seen in the previous thing will remain. At the same time, there need to be a consistency in the process of data collection. We cannot collect data just like that from one person, and this is where we, as a researcher, we fail, where we give one way of instruction to one participant and we give a different instruction to a different participant. Something like even reading our questionnaire also, the extent, sorry, the amount of impression we make in our language, the words we use also matters, because the way you use the words itself will teach the participant or the the participants what sort of information they should give to you. So it becomes very important for a researcher to equip yourself to provide consistent information in a consistent way to all population. In part A, you're collecting data from 100 people, you are administering the questionnaire, you need to give an instruction to them. The same way, you need to give a similar information to when you collect data from a part B location in a different part B location. Clear? And there comes a very important problem where when we have investigators, multiple investigators involved in a study, we fail to train them as a researcher. We only look into the data. But when do we get a quality data? When we have a enumerator or a investigator trained enough to collect the data properly. For that reason, as a researcher, we are supposed to train the investigators or enumerators who are going in to collect the data from the people. It is not at all possible when only one person can go and collect 500 data. No, we will have other colleagues or investigators, research fellows who will be helping us. They don't know anything about our research. This is our research. So we are supposed to train them. What are the ways they should talk to the participants to collect the data? What are the instructions they should give? What are the instructions they should not give? All these things they are supposed to reveal. Okay, clear? So with this, yes, this one slide will give you an entire understanding of the phases or stages in data collection process within quantitative and qualitative study. We have seen all these 5. Okay, so I'm moving on to the next for time being. Yes. So with the understanding of the entire 5 stages of data collection process in quantitative and qualitative studies, now we will come into the mixed methods design. Very important, and that is what we have come here for. So yes, so there are certain characteristics for mixed methods design, and I'm mostly focusing upon 2 important designs within mixed methods. There are other designs as well, but I'm giving more emphasis on concurrent and sequential data collection designs alone. Okay, so in concurrent, the data collection is done simultaneously. Both quantitative and qualitative data is collected at the same time parallelly, whereas in sequential, either quantitative data is collected first and it is analyzed. That will help us to fix our quantitative questions, or vice versa. First, qualitative data interview is done. We analyze the interview. We come up with a finding. Based on the finding, we try to collect the quantitative data. This is sequential form of data collection. And when it comes to concurrent data collection process, the data are not at all connected with each other. They don't have any connection. Okay. Whereas in a sequential data collection, the data that we are collecting is pakka related or connected with each other, because the first data you have collected is going to complement the second data. Only from the first data, the second data has come. Right? For that reason, it's very important to understand for a concurrent and sequential, this is a very important difference that we have. The data that we collect are independent in concurrent, whereas dependent or highly dependent in sequential data collection process. Okay. And in both data collection methods, be it quantitative or qualitative, outline the proposal stage. When it comes to, this is the case of IRB. when you want to seek permission, before going into field, you are supposed to get permission from the institutional review boards. In that case, when if it is a concurrent design that you have taken up, then you are supposed to submit the proposal with both data collection methods. How are you going to collect quantitative data, and what are the sampling procedures? All these 5 stages you need to mention for both quantitative and qualitative data. Okay, but it is not the case with sequential data collection process, where in sequential data collection design, you seek permission from the IRBs only for the initial phase. If you have chosen, you must be knowing about exploratory sequential, explanatory sequential. Yes, if it is explanatory sequential, you collect the quantitative data first, right? If it is exploratory, you collect the qualitative data first. Hope I'm being clear, right? In that case, if you are choosing exploratory design for your study in a sequential data collection process, from the IRB, you are supposed to provide information. How are you going to collect the qualitative data first? Okay, and after collecting the data, qualitative data, interview data and all, you will analyze it. You will come up with the finding. Later, you will come up with a quantitative scale instrument, a tool to collect the quantitative data next. So for that case, you don't want to go again and collect the IRB's permission. Instead, you need to attach an IRB addendum. It's called IRB addendum. It's a supplementary document. Okay, where you need to get a signature that based on the initial phase of my data collection, I have come up with this idea of second stage where I need permission to collect the data. Okay, this has to be done. This is the ethical side of the mixed methods research design. And example of concurrent research design is we have triangulation designs and embedded designs. Here we have sequential, explanatory, or sequential exploratory designs. Yes. And we'll look into the characteristics and challenges of each design. The characteristic of concurrent data collection, that is what we have seen. The data is collected at the same time frame. Data are independent, they are not connected with each other. So one of the examples you can see in 2001, Hendricks and his colleagues gathered quantitative data from clients on their outcomes. They are trying to understand clients' outcomes of the therapy that has been taken up. They have went to 402 cases, 400 cases, around 400 cases they have collected to understand the client's outcome of the therapy they had been taking up. At the same time, they have also approached the therapists who have been treating the clients. They have approached 12 therapists. So this is one of the examples of concurrent data collection process, a concurrent data collection study. So here, the researcher decides for which part of data the researcher is giving more emphasis to. Sometimes I decide I need to give more emphasis for the qualitative data. I need to give more emphasis to do better interviews, come up with a rich data of interview. Then I come up with an instrument tool. Or else it can be the other way also. So it is completely up to the researcher to decide whether to give equal importance to the data that you collect or not equal importance. Okay. Also, it depends on the research question that you are taken up, the time the research is having. Yes, and the purpose. So when after collecting the concurrent data, we analyze the data. Why do we analyze the data? First thing is to align and integrate findings, as seen in the convergent parallel designs. With the data, we try to align the quantitative data and integrate the quantitative data findings into the qualitative data analysis and finding. Okay, for that reason. And the second good reason that we need is we use one data to validate or support the other data at the same time. Okay, and to transform one type of data for comparison with the other. To do a triangulation process. Triangulation is cross-verifying whether information you have collected in one process is reliable, can we rely on that information. How are we going to do it? By collecting data in a different way. That is triangulation. There are different types of triangulation, like methodological triangulation, data triangulation, theoretical triangulation. I'm just throwing all this so that you take a note on this and try to read and understand it in a better way. We don't have time for all this. Yes. And to generate data that will address different types of questions. Okay, if you have different types of research questions, we get to generate data. Sometimes mixed method research, especially concurrent data collection, will help the researcher to come up with a different perspective of looking at your own study. For that reasons, we do a concurrent analysis of the data that we have collected. So this is a simple understanding. The picture will tell you here on the left top, we have quantitative data collection, right? On the right side, we have qualitative data collection. You can see the quantitative data collection. What are the things done in the middle? You can see the data is collected at the same time. The data are independent of each other. We do triangulation, same level or different level, and we give equal or unequal priority. It's up to the researcher, right? After this, we do once the data is collected, we can come to the bottom of the slide. You can see we do a analysis of that quantitative data or the qualitative data. Okay, this is a simple way of understanding what concurrent data analysis and what concurrent data collection and data analysis processes. Okay, and we'll move on to the challenges. Try to understand the challenges involved in this entire data collection process. When we collect data together at the same time, what are the challenges the researcher will undergo? First problem or challenge that researcher will undergo was participant selection. Whether to select the same participant or a different participant for the quantitative and qualitative study. For example, in the Delhi air quality example that we have been discussing from the beginning, I can decide as a researcher, I will have a problem in deciding whether 500 participants I'm going to choose for the quantitative study to distribute survey, questionnaire, and collect data, 500. So should I use the same 500 participants for my qualitative study or not? Right? That becomes, should I go with, because out of 5,000 people, we have chosen 500. So already I have given chances for 500. There will be, apart from this, I want to collect data, qualitative data, interview data from 50 people. Should I go with the same 500, within 500, should I choose 50 people, or should I choose 50 people out of the 500? That becomes a confusion for the researcher. Why that becomes a confusion? Because the problem here is, if we choose 50 people out of this 500, then the information collected from the quantitative data and the qualitative data may not match. That is a scary thing. What if it goes without matching? Right? At the same time, the researcher might also think, I might get a new perspective when we go out of this 500 and collect data. You understand the double standards that the researcher undergo in this? This is a challenge. So there comes a point where researcher has to balance this challenge. Right? One of the examples we can see in Capella Santana in 2003, in his study, he has gathered quantitative data from 90 UG teachers and invited all the 90 teachers for the interview also. This is one of the classic study. Can take a note of it. If you want to go read about the study, it would be helpful. The same 90 for quantitative and qualitative. Why should I worry? Let me do interview with all the 90 only. Then, but can we do, with our example, 500 data that we have collected, can we do an interview with 500 people? Do we have enough resources and manpower for it? That's a question, right? Yes, the next challenge for any researcher, mixed method researcher, comes in the sample size. Am I going to choose the entire 500, or I'm going to choose less people from that 500? That is, for example, in the triangulation convergence design, a quantitative sample consisted of 400 students, and Lazo in 1995 he has used, out of this 400, 128 people he has collected the qualitative data. So the question with the sample size is whether to use the same number of participants or a different number of participants for both quantitative leg and the qualitative leg? That is the question. So that is the confusion here. We need to somewhere come to a point where we need to take up approaches based on the quality of the cases that we are trying to interview. And the third challenge is handling contradictory results. What if the results doesn't match when we do quantitative study and qualitative study, when we collect data and analyze? What if the results contradictory with each other? For example, the quantitative study, data collection analysis will give you a positive result. Yes, there is air quality problem that has to be addressed in Delhi. Whereas the qualitative results, the data you collected from people, they may not feel that way at all. We are happy here, living here. We don't find any air quality problem here. Just giving an example. Okay. So this is negative. That is positive. What will you do when you get a contradictory result? Yes, this is one of the biggest challenge for any mixed methods research. And for these reasons, to address this challenge, Creswell in 2003, he has asked the researcher to collect additional data. Go collect the data again. Collect additional data. Out of 500 you collected, you collect more. Collect 200 data more. In quantitative, in qualitative, you have collected 50 people. Collect one more 50 people. This is one of the solution given by Creswell for the when you get a contradictory result. Okay, and in Paget in 2004, he has given an idea just to acknowledge it. You show your finding, whatever it is, be it negative or positive, don't worry. You acknowledge your finding and leave it to the further research. Let upcoming researchers in future take it up and do a study. You don't want to break your head anymore. I agree. Most of the expert researchers will agree. The second Paget's 2004 suggestion would be the right way, considering the resources that we have. Yes. This is all about concurrent data collection, the challenges that we face. When it comes to sequential data collection, as we have seen the characteristic, the data is collected one after the other. Okay, and the data are completely dependent on each other, mostly connected, where one phase, the data you collected in one phase informs or builds the data for the other. Okay, and the designs that mostly used is explanatory and exploratory sequential designs, and some of the variations within embedded design, they use this kind of data collection. Yes, so you can see here, this is sequential data collection process. It has 3 stages. You need to understand these 3 stages. The stage 1, you can see data collection can be a qualitative data collection or a quantitative data collection. It depends on the research question. It depends on the researcher's decision. Okay. After collecting the data, quantitative or qualitative, then you do an analysis. You don't directly go to the stage 2. Before moving on to the stage 2, you do an analysis of the data that you have collected, be it quantitative or qualitative. Okay. So once the analysis is done, you move on to the stage 2. You can see stage 2. Within stage 2, based on the research design that you have chosen as a researcher, if it is an explanatory research design, okay, if it is explanatory, if it is exploratory, if it is embedded research design, what you are supposed to do. So the results of stage 1 will actually set the stage for stage 3 data collection process. That is the basic idea. So in stage 2, if the research design is explanatory follow-up design or an embedded design, yes, you are supposed to further explain the quantitative and qualitative data that you have collected. Okay. Whereas if the design is explanatory participant selection design or exploratory taxonomy design, these are within designs, you are supposed to select participants, more participants, okay, for the stage 3 process. And if you're trying to develop and test an instrument, mostly a sequential data collection process or sequential design is used to develop or test an instrument only, especially exploratory. In that case, can use this. And similarly, for doing an intervention also, especially in embedded design, can use this kind of data collection process. Once this is done, you move on to the stage 3, where depends on the stage 1 data collection process, you choose your stage 3 data collection process, and you also do a data analysis later. Okay, hope you are understood. I'm moving to the next time being. Yes. Very importantly, what are the challenges you face in sequential data collection process as a researcher? The first and foremost problem for any researcher here is using the same, am I going to use the same participant or a different samples for my study is the first and foremost challenge, right? For that reason, you can see in almost all the mixed methods, especially sequential research design, same participants are typically included. Yes, especially in the explanatory designs, same participants they will include. Okay, and in stage 3, the sample size of stage 1 and stage 3 might not match, especially in quantitative when you do an explanatory design. Because in explanatory design, what you do, you collect the quantitative data first, where you collect data from 500 people, right? In the example of Delhi also, collect data from 500 people, you analyze the data, and you go to do interview with how many people? Not with 500, right? In stage 3, you're supposed to collect data from 50. So that is a difference, huge difference in your sample size. That becomes a problem. How are we going to deal with this? Are you going to go with 50, or in the classic research study that they have used early, are you going to with 500 quantitative and 500 qualitative? Or how are you going to justify your sample size, the difference in the sample size? That is a very huge challenge for the researcher in this design. And especially in the case of exploratory designs, where you do a qualitative data collection and analysis first. The goal of stage 3 in these designs is to generalize the findings to a larger population. So in stage 3, you are trying to generalize the result. So again, that becomes a challenge. How are you going to generalize with the data that you have collected from 50 participants interviewed data? You are going to come up with a tool to collect with 500 people. 50 to 500, you need to have a question with yourself. So these are the general confusions or challenges a researcher will undergo when the researcher does the research properly in a genuine ethical way. Others don't need to worry about it. Yes. And the next challenge, biggest challenge is using the sample or different sample size. Yes. Are we going to use the same sample because the sample size is not going to match? Yes. And the intent is also not to merge or compare the data. The purpose of the researcher in sequential design, what we do in concurrent design, we try to merge or integrate the data and we do analysis. But in sequential data, we don't merge or integrate the data or the findings, right? So when that is the case, how are we going to deal with this difference in sample size is again the problem. And how are we going to follow with the results that have been selected? That is another problem. When we want to further explore, okay, we are trying to identify the key findings and understand the deep explanation. How are we going to follow with it? So researchers must determine which results from stage 1 can be further explored. For example, when you do the Delhi example, you have done a quantitative analysis of data with 500 people, and you have got a significant finding and non-significant finding, right? So which one you are going to focus upon in your stage 3 for the qualitative research? So there might be a significant relationship between gender and the perception of air quality. Maybe females might have felt air quality is poorer than males. that is a significant finding? Are you going to focus on that finding in your stage 3 process of quality interview data collection? Or you're going to collect data from a different question? It might be a non-significant finding. So this is where the research is stuck. So all these things has to be addressed. It takes time. It comes with the research process for a researcher. Yes. And concluding with the entire process of sequential and concurrent data collection process, so it provides a comprehensive approach to explore complex research questions. Why, compared to quantitative and qualitative research collection, data collection, why do we need to get into a mixed methods research collection? Is because it gives us a holistic approach and tries to understand and explore complex research questions. And more than that, it gives us a combined strength of both qualitative and quantitative data collection process. For that, we need to get into a mixed methods data collection process. And also, we also get a deep understanding of the context, since we are collecting both the data, people's perspective and the reality facts, right? And the measurable patterns within a study. We also try to understand the patterns. Yes. So basically, it relies, the entire mixed method research focus remains on only if we can focus upon all these things, then we can say our research mixed methods data collection is going in a quality way. The rigor of the data collection process is stable. Okay, what are they? Then just summarizing, you need to focus upon as a mixed methods researcher in selecting appropriate sampling strategies. What sort of sampling we are going to do? Probabilistic, non-probabilistic, purposive, within purposive, what sort of purposive sampling we are going to adapt. Okay, concurrent, all these things. Yes. And as a researcher, we are supposed to focus on employing effective data collection methods. Are we going to use observation method, within observation, participant, non-participant observation? Are we going to do an interview method? Are we going to distribute questionnaire? What is it we are going to do? What sort of method we are going to collect the data for the required research question? And our focus also goes upon ensuring systematic recording information. Are we recording the information systematically according to the procedure? Are we organized about it? Are we organizing the information, the data that we have collected? Are we missing out any data here or not? What if we have missed out something? There are certain procedures to go back and collect the data. How are we going to do it? Are we aware about it? All these questions we need to focus upon. And very importantly, for a mixed methods researcher, the challenge that we have discussed is balancing the sample sizes. We need to ensure utmost thing is to balance the sample size. Or we need to have a proper justification. If the sample sizes are extremely different, then we need to have a proper justification for the same, right? And managing the data from diverse sources, since we collect prior, post data, concurrently, sequentially, whatever it is, quantitative and qualitative data, different methods we collect data. So we need to manage the data properly. And very importantly, as a researcher, we need to maintain consistency. As I said, we need to give instruction. We need to be equipped enough to give potential information to the participants and train the enumerators and investigators in the proper way to collect the data. And else we will fail in our research in getting a quality data for our research. Yes. With that, I move on to the final slide. What are the common pitfalls a mixed method researcher might face and how to overcome them? The common pitfalls, the first would be poor sampling techniques. For any mixed methods research, without having a proper knowledge about mixed methods research, a researcher might choose a poor sampling technique. Okay, that will affect the quality of the data collection or the data collected. Okay, for that reason, the first thing a researcher has to do is you need to ensure your sample represents your target population or not. Okay, so you need to choose your target population first, and you need to define the population, and you need to collect the data, understanding the potential bias, if any. If there is any bias, Am I giving the instruction properly? Am I using the proper investigators? All these things you need to be addressed at the first beginning, at the outset. Okay. So yes, and the next common pitfall is leading questions in surveys or interviews can bias responses towards desired outcomes. Yes, very importantly, when you do a qualitative study, you are the person who is asking the questions to the in-depth interview. You ask questions to the participants. You might probe them in a way you want the answers to be. This happens knowingly or unknowingly. Most of the qualitative researchers fail here. We might have something in our mind or something like from the previous 4 data set, 4 interview participants that they collected, we might got some themes. Okay. From the 5th participant, the participant might give an answer that is very deviating from the previous 4 participants. So what would we do as a researcher? We want some similar information, right? So what we do, we would try to probe them or control their answers. This happens mostly in qualitative research. So for that reason, we are supposed to use neutral language, especially in giving instruction also. Yes, we are supposed to use neutral language and test the instruments in quantitative study. We are supposed to test the instruments by doing a pilot study. Okay. And the third pitfall is inadequate training. As I told you, with the enumerators and investigators, we don't provide them with proper training. Yes. So for that reason, we need to invest as a researcher. We need to invest in providing comprehensive training to the enumerators and establish clear protocols. Clear protocols, how to collect data and what to do with the data, right? And final common pitfall for any mixed method researcher is technology failure. We cannot excuse this at all as a researcher. Yes, we cannot excuse this at all. So we need to be prepared enough. Always have a backup plan and test all your technical instruments prior. Before deploying it, you need to test them. Okay, the common pitfalls and some of the references that I have taken this content from. And finally, I would like to give you an activity. I have come up with many, but I decided, okay, I'll just finish with only one activity. So not for now, but I want you to work on it. 1 second. The problem with my yeah. So one activity is examine one qualitative and quantitative journal article. Okay, the 2 studies should display the 2 forms of sampling. Okay, the studies you choose should display the 2 forms of sampling, purposeful and random or systematic sampling. Try to understand. Try to understand the different approaches used. I want the participants here to do it by yourself. Take a note of this. This is the activity. Try to identify journal article that has both quantitative and qualitative approach they have used, what sort of sampling procedures they have followed, and how they have collected the data. All these things you need to try to understand by yourself, read it by yourself. Unless you make an effort from your side after this session, you are not going to remember anything that I have been talking in this session for the past 1.5 or 2 hours. So please, from your side, without even drinking a drop of water, I have been talking for the past 1.5 hours, 1 hour 46 minutes. So from your side, I just expect, this is for your good, for your better learning. You make an attempt from your side with this activity. You will try to connect what has been learned from the session to remember it forever, and you can also become a good resource person. That hope I have also become. Yes, thank you so much, everyone. Yes, over to Bennett sir, and if somebody is having any questions, I would welcome. Someone is having this. So could you please unmute them?
No, only the sentence.
Yes, sir. We have unmuted, sir. Dear participants, now the floor is open for discussion. Those who want to ask your doubts, you can ask. Others, please mute yourself.
Yes, someone has raised their hand. Yes, please go with your question. Thank you, Manjula ma'am. Thank you. Someone raised your hands for a question. Please do. When we don't ask something, when we don't pose a question, it just reveals two things. Either we have understood everything that I have taught for the past 1.5 hours, or we haven't understood anything. Only these two possibilities are there. So please. Dr. Yes, I'm not able to understand your question, ma'am. Do anyone have a question? Yes,
Good evening.
Priyadashini Ramasamy. Yes, ma'am.
I don't have any question, but I want to say thank you for explaining, because in past 3 days I had this query in mind. Suppose we are doing research with quantitative method and qualitative method, and there's a contradictory in the results. So how to address that? So you beautifully explained how to address that particular issue. So I really want to thank you for such an insightful session.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes, thank
My
you so
pleasure.
much, dear participants. Yeah, anybody want to ask question? So thank you so much, and thank you so much, Dr. Prasant Silvera sir. It's a beautiful presentation. I also able to listen to your session for the past 2 hours without moving anywhere. It's a great session, sir, and we have to thank Dr. Scholar Divakar for introducing you to the forum. And sincerely thankful to Mr. Divakar also, and also, sir, for a beautiful session. Hope we all enjoyed. We will be sending you the YouTube link also, sir, in a short while. Dear participants, successfully completed 5 to 6 days, and still 8 more days left to complete our entire course. Requesting you to please be on time. See, we have start by 6 o'clock, we are ending by 8 o'clock. We are not taking your time. Please be on time. This is the only way that we can learn something. It is not about getting certificates alone. Apart from certificates, the term education is learning process where learning comes from questioning and logical reasoning. While this let me say thank you once again and ending the session for all. Thank you once again. Good night.
Yes, sir. Hello, sir.
Yes, Prasant sir.
I would like to take a screenshot.
Yeah, you have taken,
my
sir. We have taken a screenshot. We will send it to you.
Oh, okay, sir. Okay, sir.
I will send. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank
Okay,
you.
sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. And thank you, everyone. Thank you for being